So I love JDM cars, it's no secret, and we get to work on some really, really cool cars here at DC. One of these is this Supra Mark IV, twin turbo, 6-speed. Now this is the one to have. This looks really cool. It's already got the valve side carbon arches on it. We did a bit of work to this last year, tidying the front bumper up. Now it's come back for the works. Now we're not going mental on this, but there are some marks on it, some cracks on the bonnet, cracks on these aftermarket wing mirrors. There's some blistering on the boot. So basically it's come in for us to tidy it all up, get it looking mint for the summer. Right, so first off, we've got this wing mirror. These are aftermarket wing mirrors. Both of them need repairing. Not sure why it's cracked. I'm not sure whether they've been repainted. There's that much material on there that it's cracked, but we're gonna figure it out when we start digging into them. This one is the better of the two actually, but there is a crack down here. First thing we've got to do is get them off the car. The only things they're bonded on, so we're going to figure this one out pretty quickly. Hopefully they're bolted on. First thing for us to do, take the door cards off. Hopefully they're bolted on. We can take those off, repair them on the bench, sort that crack out and see why it's actually happened.
Really have made a mess of it. I was going to say, just coming to take the mirror off on it, there's only one bolt in it, so what they've done, they've bonded it on, and for the sheer amount of material on the mirror, if you get a close in on here, it's left all the material bonded to the door that's pulled away from the mirror, because there's that many layers of paint on it. Unbelievable. That is. It's got to be the worst I've seen, that is. There's that much build-up of material on the mirror. It's left all the material on the frigging bonding on the door.
Yeah. Well, all the metal is. They're electric adjustable, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I was going to say they could never have worked because the wires was ripped out of it. But if you look down the back of there, there's that much material on it there. And even the mirror, it's just the material, that is.
So one of the worst areas on the car is the boot. Now, there's rust here, both sides actually. We've obviously already had the window taken out of this, ready for us to start work. Now, these side panels on the spoiler, these are pretty bad. They're actually blistered really badly. Obviously been overpainted. Something's gone wrong when the guys painted it in the past. We've got to take this right the way back. You can never just sand back blisters and paint over them. They're always going to come back. Now, these are micro blisters. It might be moisture. It well could be solvent, pop, anything like that. If things have been rushed, you get problems. So things need to get done properly first time. So unfortunately, you're going to have to take these right the way back, probably to the gel coat. Carbon spoiler looks great, but it's got some lacquer peel on that back edge. So I'm hoping we can just feather that out, sand it all back and re-lacquer it. The lacquer doesn't look to have yellowed, hopefully. So we'll find out that when we start lacquering, sanding it out. We'll get that sanded back, have a look at it, get that re-lacquered. And also got some rust down here as well. So quite a lot of work to do on this back, on the boot. A little bit of blistering in there as well. So quite a lot of work to do, get that prepped up, get this ready for paint as well. So whenever you're starting any restoration work, you got to get the metalwork as perfect as you can first, because it all starts from that. You know, get your metalwork perfect. It means you got to do less filler work, less prepping, less sanding, and you got to do it anyway. So get the metalwork as perfect as you can. Now, this is okay, but it's not perfect. Obviously, someone's debadged the car in the past. What we would have done was just welded the hole up, ground it flush, and then you need the smallest little skimmer filler just to skim it over. What the person's done on this one is put a little square over the top of the hole, ground that quite flat, so maybe it's 1/2 mil deep, that. But then the problem is, because of that is sitting proud, they've got to put then a skimmer filler over it, and that skimmer filler is probably minimum that big to blend it. You know, there's a couple of little holes that have been welded there, again with a little patch, and they're not that bad, to be fair. If anything, it is a little sunk a little bit, but you can just see this excess filler in there that probably doesn't even need to be there. So to make sure that this repair lasts for years to come, we're going to sand all this right back. It's a shame we can't do the whole car, to be fair, but we're going to sand this one right by back, take it up to there, skim that in, block it, paint it, and we'll see if this actually does need the amount of filler that it's gone in it. Another bad thing on this one, got a fiberglass bonnet and there's some deep cracks on this. Again, we're gonna have to figure out why it's cracked. It may well be that there's just a lot of material on there. Maybe it had poor repairs in the past. So we've got a crack by the vent, crack by that washer jet, a crack in the center. There's also some rings, which are coming up, looks like an old repair. I can't imagine why there's a hole been repaired or filled over in the center of the bonnet, but that's kind of what it looks like. Sort that out. And there's a crack on the front as well, so I've got to figure those out. Right, so Simon has sanded back the cracks on this bonnet and we found this. Now it looks like a tree, rings of a tree. I can't believe that it's been painted this many times. I don't actually remember any other car that's ever come in through this shop in the last, 18 years that's been painted this many times. It's ridiculous. We've counted 12 times this has been painted. So unfortunately, because it's been painted so many times, you can probably get away with overpainting, but 3 times. That's it. After that, you really need to strip it back. Otherwise, things like this happen, whereby it just cracks, or you get blisters, or you get sinking marks, or things ring out around repairs. You know, you're going to get problems down in the line, which is why probably it keeps on needing to be repaired, rather than just strip it back and start fresh, which we've got to do that now. If we was to repair these little areas, it'd look good for a couple of months, maybe 6 months max. Then you're going to start getting cracks again. So unfortunately, we've got no other option but to sand all this back, which is probably going to take the best part of a day just to sand it back. And it's even more awkward because it's a fiberglass bonnet as well. You can't just take it back to the metal. If we keep on sanding, it's just going to make the wobbles in the fiberglass. So basically what we've got to do, we've got to sand it all the way back. All this is going to have to be done by hand, which is time consuming and awkward. Inside there by hand to a point anyway. And when we almost get back to the gel coat, that's when we're going to start blocking it and use the material that's on it to block it. If we use a DA for all of it and just our fingers, obviously we're going to create dips and troughs, and we're going to have high spots, and it's going to be wobbly. Then you're going to skimming the whole thing from top to bottom and blocking it all and creating a load more work. So what we're going to do in a nutshell is sand all this back. It's going to take hours, then block it as flat as we can before we high build prime it. Block that back, and then we're good for paint. So a lot of work going into this now, but that's what's going to keep it looking perfect for years to come. So last year, it came in and we re-lacquered that veil side carbon arch on that side. Now, unfortunately, the lacquer on these has just yellowed over time, so we're going to have to sand that right the way back, get all that lacquer off it, re-lacquer it, get it looking mint again. So there's quite a lot of work to do on this, lots of little bits. Luckily, all the panels can come off this car, so we can work everything separate. It makes life easier. Plus, you can do a nicer job of everything separately as well. So, yeah, time to get this thing stripped, get it sorted out, get it repaired, get it painted, looking mint, ready for this summer. So here's another little pet hate of ours here. It's not removing door handles, seals, anything like that. And then you get this lip of paint. Now, I'm not sure how many times this has been painted without actually taking this quick release catch off, but you can see one here. Probably been painted at least 2 times. So instead of taking 6 bolts out, what they've done is just laziness, really trying to save time, is mask around it and then just paint the bonnet. Then you end up with this big lip here. Then eventually, when you come around and you're jet washing your car, the jet wash will get underneath that lip of paint and it starts picking the paint off, delaminating the lacquer, peeling the paint, all the rest of it, and then you've got to repaint your bonnet again just because someone couldn't be bothered taking 6 bolts out. So yeah, that can be a very costly mistake. Trying to save money, but in the end it costs a lot more. So the first thing we had to do with this was start sanding back the panels. We started with the bonnet, which we thought this was going to be small repairs. That's all it came in for, just to repair the cracks, repaint the bonnet. We quickly found that it wasn't just paint cracks, but this bonnet had been painted multiple times, which was just insane, like I said before. So unfortunately, we had to strip all the paint off the bonnet. Now this is painstaking. It took 2 days in total. Now on top of that, we found, and it wasn't really a problem, you had to take the paint off anyway, but the paint was cracking and flaking off. Now that is just poor adhesion throughout the layers, so poor prep work basically. So Had we done small repairs, no doubt in the future it would have gone elsewhere. So the only way to fix this was to completely strip it back and start again. Now with the boot we had the same problem. That was metal, so luckily for us it's a lot quicker to strip. We can put a strip and clean wheel in a grinder, take it back in half an hour. That is the difference. Although it's a smaller panel, the difference in time is huge. Right, now with the carbon fiber, the front wheel arch and the spoiler, we knew from previous repair on the front one, we had to strip back all the lacquer on that front arch, including the gel coat right the way back to the weave. Now, that's not a problem in itself, but it's just time consuming. Again, gotta be super careful. The spoiler just needed a small repair, but we're gonna get back to both of those in a little while. Okay, so once side finished all the filler work, we got the Supra straight into the spray booth, cleaned it off, masked it up, ready for primer. Now on the boot, the wing mirrors, we used an epoxy primer. This is a high build epoxy primer that you can also use as a 2K primer itself, so it's perfect to paint on top of. Super high build, corrosion resistance, the lot, so it's the perfect material to use for these repairs. So on the bonnet we used a polyester spray filler. Now this again, it's the perfect material to use for this repair. Ideally, to get that fiberglass bonnet nice and smooth, it just needed one final skim. Once all the primering had been done and it was all flatted back and blocked to perfection using our Pro Blocks, it was now ready for paint. So everything back in the booth again, mask up the car and start the paint process. Now the paint process is one of the quickest parts of any restoration job, but it's only as good as the preparation. So that's why the prep takes so long. So once the blue had flashed and that had dried, it's now ready for the lacquer. Now we're using the Cap C 2-part lacquer on this. Beautiful lacquer, high build shine. And this is where it all comes to life, and you can see all your hard work looking perfect and as good as new again. So then it was onto the carbon fiber. Now for the front arch, because we'd taken it down to the weave, we used a clear high build primer designed specifically for carbon fiber before lacquer. This makes it look perfectly brand new again, ready for polish and refit. So once all that paint had fully gone off and baked it off, it was now ready for polish. Now we're not going to go full show condition paint job on this, we've got to paint match it. So with this one, because it had already been painted in the past and the finish on it was quite good, what we did was flat it back with 1500 grit, 3000 tri-sack polish. So the last part of any job is the build up. So this is where you see the car come back to life and really take shape. So bonnet was on, spoiler on, front arch on. Now this thing is cool yet again. So we're finally done on the Supra. This has been a huge job, absolutely massive, way bigger than we ever thought it was going to be. And you know what, it's looking pretty sweet now. The bonnet was painted 18 times, which is insane. I said before, I've never, and there's a few of us that work here, you know, between us, we've all got a lot of painting experience, probably over 100 years. We've never seen a panel painted that many times before. It's insane, it is silly. And so this has turned into a much bigger job. So it's took a huge amount of work, but it's looking pretty sweet now. We're trying to bodywork it so that it looks like a metal panel. That's the ideal, to try and make it look as factory as possible. I know none of this looks factory if you know what you're looking at, but try to make it as flat as you possibly can. That alone is probably a week's worth of work, which is insane. So now onto the mirrors. These are veil side mirrors that unfortunately you can't get anymore. Now, again, there was just cracks on there. I thought it was just excess material, which it was, and that one was blistered as well. So that one always needed to be stripped back, but we actually found that there was a lot of material on there. I can't remember how many times it was painted actually, but it was a fair few. Not as many as the bonnet though. They had to be stripped down, but they're actually made of rubber with a metal inside. The way they're made is quite complex, but all that metal inside is absolutely rotten. Actually looks like they've got soil inside. It was that rotten, it's just stupid. They're actually blown out as well, because when metal rusts to that degree, it expands and it just blows out. We've had to cut so much material off the inside of them, pull all that rusty metal out. They were bolted on at one point. There's no bolts in there anymore. They were bonded on, So we had to cut them off the body. They are bonded back on now. The rubber had split in a few places. We've had to repair that. We've had to give it a skim as well. Not a normal body filler, we use a plastic body filler, which is really flexible. So this has all had a skim as well. They've took a lot of work to save these. And it's a shame that you can't get any more, because if you could buy them, you would have simply bought some more rather than save them. But, you know, it's what restoration is about. Right, so the boot wasn't loads more work than we actually thought. It had been painted a few times. There was sinking marks on there, so it was obvious that someone had done some metal work or filling badges before. The carbon spoiler was exactly what we thought. It just needed to be flatted back and re-lacquered, so that was a nice, easy one. Side pieces, they blistered. They need to be stripped back, and again, because they're fiberglass, yeah, that was painstaking. Been painted a few times as well. Stripped those right back. There was so much material on the boot and excess filler work as well that just didn't need to be there, which we find a lot. It's just easy to strip it back. Just strip that back to bare metal up to around here. There was rust in here. The rear window was obviously taken out. There was rust in the bottom corners, which is normal. It's had a new seal put in there. Obviously the paint was blended to keep the original to the car. Original paint up the top section. We welded a few holes up across the top for the old spoiler that people had just filled over. So it's a lot of work. There's the minimal amount of filler in it now. What we find is people just put excess filler on rather than sanding down the filler that's on there, the highs. They'll think it's low, so they keep on adding more filler, blocking that back. And actually what you've got, you just need to use the material that you've got and block it out. Block it out till you're seeing metal, and then put filler in the lows, block that again. Keeps the filler work down to a minimum, keeps your work down to a minimum as well, less materials, less time, all the rest of it. So yeah, there was a lot of excess material in there that we just got rid of. And finally, the over fenders. Now these again, they're carbon fiber veil side over arches. They're a bit of a mess. We did the other one last year. They were just delaminating and the lacquer had gone very, very yellow. So unfortunately, as it's delaminated, sometimes you can just feather that back, get away with re-lacquering. Because it had gone yellow, it's impossible. We had to sand all of it back to the weave and re-lacquer it. So different repair process on that. You know, you got your carbon fiber primer and re-lacquer it. So we re-lacquered it a couple of times as well. That's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. Again, it's just man hours. A lot of careful sanding. You can't just go at it and pop riveted back on. Looking like brand new again. That's it, we're all done. This thing is looking awesome again. So if you want to see more, like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.